I'm still muted. Okay. Now, hello. I'm gonna shut the door. My boyfriend's making food, and my microphone picks up like every little sound. So, I discovered JustPearlyThings, Pearl Davis, a year ago. And I'm a hater, total hater. And we're gonna hate watch her video, her appearance she made on I guess a podcast, a show with Tim Pool hosting. And Lauren Chen was there, Rachel Wilson, Andrew Wilson's wife was there. And we're just gonna watch that, talk about it, because I have some things to comment on. Is there anything else I want to say? I was gonna play this one clip of a call-in, a female caller who called into Pearl's show. I was gonna play that before we start this, but I think I'm just gonna jump right into this, and if there's an appropriate time to show that, I might jump to that real quick too. But let's see. Kind of starts just like very spontaneously, but I'm starting at 17 seconds.
But I feel like Pearl is someone who, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like you kind of enrage bait people with your posts, because you'll post something really like a super hot take on Twitter, and then like you'll make a video about it, and the video in turn is a lot more nuanced, a lot more.
I watch things on like 1.5 speed, so let me slow this down. I'll do 1.25. Let's do that. Should be good.
Or I guess rational. So sometimes I feel like I'm trying to. I'm struggling to see like what your actual views are versus maybe what gets the most traction on X. So I'm excited for this to have a conversation about it. But I guess the role of women in society is, to be mothers, to be wives, to support their families. How exactly that looks is going to differ from people to people. That's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily associate with the trad movement. I feel like trad refers to specifically almost the glamorization and in some ways fetishization of maybe like rural 1850s middle America, at least on like what I see on TikTok. Whereas, I'm just a mom who works part-time from home and is basically trying to do whatever I can to help support my family.
Well, I would say there's character limits on X. So, you're not going to get a full opinion with like, I don't know, is it 60 characters? But I don't know, what tweets are you talking about? I have like 18,000, so I don't know.
Every single one. Literally every single one of her tweets is click rage bait. She doesn't believe any of her opinions or statements. She just puts shit out there that will cause controversy.
Well, we actually, I wanted to be specific here because I did pull some of the ones up. I sent them to you. I didn't want to ambush you or surprise you.
Sorry, I'm stopping this much already. But did you hear that? She says, I sent some of them to you. So Pearl's acting kind of dumb here. And she's like, I didn't want to ambush you. I already sent you some of the tweets that I wanted to bring up. I thought that was kind of funny. And kind of highlights some of Pearl's dishonesty already. But even her own supporters even say this. There's no way you actually believe that. You're just saying that to because it's edgy or goes against the grain, the typical norm. It's a very unpolitically correct thing to say or whatever. And she's just a major grifter, and I really think it's crazy that so many people fall for it, especially in the manosphere.
Or anything like that. Let's see.
And the role of women in society, sorry, I was thinking what the second question was. Well, I think it depends, what do we want it to be or what is it now?
Right.
And I think right now it's we're not really doing much. We're not really having kids. We're not really contributing to the economy when you look at output. So it's like, what do we want it to be, or what is it? Because I wouldn't say women are doing what you described now.
Okay, well, one of the things that, like I spoke recently actually with Rachel's husband, Andrew, and one of the tweets that I mentioned that I thought was kind of strange coming from you was that basically you said evil comes from women. Andrew, in his interpretation, he made a very rational, very nuanced, actually, this is what she means. Is it not true that there is a lower moral bar for women, blah, blah, blah. And it Andrew's smart guy. It made a lot of sense. That's not what the tweet was. And kind of funnily enough, you tweeted out later to clarify, Lauren, that yes, evil does come from women.
Yeah, well, because I would just look at every problem in society. It all comes from women.
To be fair, I just realized this the other day, but did you know that Hitler was made by a woman? That proves it.
Well, it's like you look at the homeless. Most of them come from single mother homes. You look at school shooters. Most of them come from single mother homes. You look at criminals, rapists. Most of them come from single mother homes. You look at what happens when women get power. So when men get power, they build societies. They do awesome things. When women get power, we're just not very good with it.
I just love Hitler. I mean, I kind of feel like there's a lot of bad dudes, you know?
Well, yeah, but there's also bad queens, right? If you look at queens the last 500 years, women are more likely to wage war. Women are way more violent with power, and we see that in society. Look at what women are doing in the court system today. And what is more evil than breaking up a family? And women do that all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say most problems in society come from women.
So that's interesting because I watched your...
This is why it's just so stupid, because she just like doesn't understand real life. I don't know if it's on purpose, but I feel like it's not, because she grew up very sheltered, right? She grew up in like a one percenter of a one percenter home, like in a mansion, a bunch of siblings, and outside, like in the suburbs, and very nice suburbs of Chicago, and lived in her little rich, nice bubble. And she just oversimplifies problems and never gives any real like detailed explanation or the actual root. She just says, oh yeah, it's women, because most people in prison have single moms, but she never like explores further into that, or gives any kind of support for these statements she makes that she feels so strongly about. She never has like actual statistics. Every single time, I'm not kidding, every single time I've fact-checked one of her statistics or like data she provides, they're outdated, they're just wrong, or they're just fucking literally made up. And she'll like say, like she'll try to use the same statistic, but like it'll be totally different in different appearances. So she's just a liar. I don't know, throughout this appearance we're gonna see a lot of it. I just think it's really funny. I do think she is kind of like starting to fall off, even though she has been getting a lot of pretty big, like she's been getting on a lot of pretty big shows and podcasts and interviews and stuff, but I don't think she's as popular as she was maybe half a year ago, which is good.
Conversation with Michael Knowles, which I thought was really interesting. And in it, you were very adamant that people need to take responsibility for their own actions. So when it relates to women, it's not really an excuse to say, oh, well, feminism brainwashed me. You still made the decision to sleep around. You still made the decision to get an abortion.
I think if you get an abortion, you're responsible.
Okay.
Right?
Shouldn't we have that same standard when it comes to the rapists, the men? You made a decision, you're responsible. It's not really like, oh, but my single mother. Like many people have.
And they are responsible. They go to jail for it. But you.
Well, he was raised by a mother, so it's not his fault, because, he was born from a woman. So, it's women, guys.
You have to look at, there's significant differences between single mother and single father homes. And I can't help but notice that all of the men that seem to lack morals, they were raised by a woman.
Right, but is the answer then that evil comes from women? We are kind of leaving out the fact that, yeah, a man actually left the parent or his family in that situation. There are some situations where a woman doesn't want the man there.
But most of the time, men don't leave. Women are the ones that overwhelmingly leave. And if you really dig it, if you actually do the work and interview men that are the known to be like deadbeat.
Most of the times.
Dads. Most of the deadbeat dads don't really exist. They're exceptions. They're not the rule.
So,
and if you actually do the work and interview these guys, there's men that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for their kids. And unfortunately, we're in a society where women can claim abuse. They can say he emotionally abused me and not see his kid for years.
Real quick, what's the stat? I know that there's stats on women initiating divorce more. But how do we say that, fatherlessness is predominantly driven by women? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, because women are choosing to leave, and the number one reason is irreconcilable differences.
But that's when you're talking about single mothers who are a result of divorce. If we're looking at single mothers who were never.
What is the stat? Women are choosing to leave. Most of the times. There are no deadbeat dads. Deadbeat dads don't exist. They're the exception. That's the stat.
Were actually married. It's not. It's a very different group.
Shit. What did I do? Hold up. Okay, I went to the end of the...
Shouldn't we have that same standard when it comes to the rapists, the men? You made a decision, you're responsible. It's not really like, oh, but my single mother. Like you...
Okay, I think I went back to the same spot. Maybe this isn't a good idea. I'm super clumsy. I'm looking for my notes that I took on this. I wonder if I typed them. Okay, anyways.
And they are responsible. They go to jail for it. But you have to look at, there's significant differences between single mother and single father homes. And I can't help but notice that all of the men that seem to lack morals, they were raised by a woman.
Right, but is the answer then that evil comes from women? We are kind of leaving out the fact that, yeah, a man actually left the parent or his family in that situation. There are some situations where a woman doesn't want the man there.
But most of the time, men don't leave. Women are the ones that overwhelmingly leave. And if you really dig it, if you actually do
Most of the times.
the work and interview men that are known to be like deadbeat dads, most of the deadbeat dads don't really exist. They're exceptions. They're not the rule.
So,
and if you actually do the work and interview these guys, there's men that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for their kids. And unfortunately, we're in a society where women can claim abuse. They can say he emotionally abused me and not see his kid for years.
Real quick, what's the stat? I know that there's stats on women initiating divorce more, but how do we say that, fatherlessness is predominantly driven by women? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, because women are choosing to leave, and the number one reason is irreconcilable differences.
But that's when you're talking about single mothers who are a result of divorce. If we're looking at single mothers who were never actually married, it's not. It's a very different group of people.
But the whole point is women have all the power here. We have a million choice. You get to choose whether or not you get pregnant. Abortion's legal, so we are 100% in control of who's born. So there is zero excuse to make a kid with a guy that's not going to stick around. Zero excuse.
I would also say there's zero excuse for a guy to not stick around.
Well, but the issue you're getting is
because you're basically saying, but what about the women though? When we're talking about the man
but
leaving?
The difference is men cannot opt out of fatherhood. Women can opt out of motherhood.
And I think we would both agree that you should not be able to opt out of motherhood.
But
right?
we can, and it's not my point. But should whatever. Like abortion's legal. It's here to stay. Unfortunately, I don't say this because I'm happy about it, but I mean in the UK they're introducing a law where they want to make it legal up to birth. So abortion is legal, and right now men are not able to opt out of fatherhood. Only women are.
Only socially, not physically. Women in the United States overwhelmingly have the right to abort.
Correct.
Or are allowed to abort. Men don't have any say whatsoever. But socially, I looked it up it says, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20.2% of fathers, about 7 million, are absent dads. They don't live with their minor children. So
right, but why?
Right. So this stat doesn't literally mean that 20% of fathers are like getting up and saying, later kid, I'm going to buy scratchers and then disappearing. But my point was just that of this, you have men who are like, okay, you're having a kid, I'm leaving, you'll never see me again.
Well, but you don't understand the circumstances, because a lot of times women make men dads that don't want to be. They're like, this is something casual. This is
Wait, how much? What was that?
You have men who are like, okay, you're having a kid, I scratchers.
Yeah. Why?
Right. 2% of fathers, about 7 million, are
20% of fathers, or about 7 million, are absentee dads, meaning they don't live with their minor children. This is in contrast to the roughly 34 million fathers who have at least one child under the age of 18. Absent dads are more likely to have never married and to be living with their own parents. Interesting. Okay, so that's 20%. So that's the exception too. And we're saying that the majority of evil comes from single mothers and, women, because there's so many single mothers that are having children with these men that apparently they have children with them, even though they know they're going to leave, because people love to have children with people that they know ahead of time are going to leave. But so even if it's 20%, like that's still like a pretty, I mean, it's like a problem still, but it's pretty, it's still the exception. So by her same argument, her same logic, like that wouldn't be a cause for all evil. I mean, I guess there's more things than just single mothers, but she just, her like, and this isn't just Pearl, a lot, just like all of Red Pill stuff, like kind of just like contradicts itself. It's very counterproductive. It's very contradictory. Their subscriptions end up, you know, they're very counterintuitive to the outcomes that they're looking for. The results are, you know, end up being the exact thing that they don't want, that they try to avoid.
Absent dads, they don't live with their minor children. So
right, but why?
Right. So this doesn't literally mean that 20% of fathers are like getting up and saying, "Let your kid, I'm going to buy scratchers," and then disappearing. But my point was just that of this, you have men who are like, "Okay, you're having a kid, I'm leaving. You'll never see me again."
Well, but you don't understand the circumstances, because a lot of times women make men dads that don't want to be. They're like, this is something.
A lot of times. Remember that. A lot of times. Good stats.
Casual. This is, you know, situationships are really common. They know that man will never commit to them, and yet they still make the choice to have his kid. I think in those situations, if we can legally opt out of motherhood, they should be able to legally opt out of fatherhood. We have all the power now. Don't make a kid with someone that doesn't want to be a father.
I see. You're saying
I think that applies equally to, and this is why I don't advocate for promiscuity. Don't sleep with someone that you're not prepared to have a child with.
But what's happening?
Is what
that's like, this isn't a dream world. You know, this isn't like Make-A-Wish, you know, society promiscuity is going to go, it's not.
That's literally what you are saying, though. Okay, like, should, whatever, but this isn't a dream world. Okay, yeah, you know, we shouldn't be having children with people that aren't going to stay. That would be great. But, like, this isn't a dream world. Like, people aren't just, like, for the overwhelming majority aren't having children with somebody that they are fully aware of are going to leave them eventually. Like, oh, yeah, this person's going to leave me, but I want to have this kid anyways. That's the fucking dream world.
So I'm talking about what's happening. Go ahead.
Are you saying that a woman who sleeps, like, let's say a woman, you know, we'll start light. She sleeps with a guy, gets pregnant, and then realizes this guy will leave her, doesn't want to be a dad. You're saying she should get an abortion? I'm
not saying should or shouldn't. I'm saying women have the choice to, right now. Men do not have the choice to opt out of fatherhood. Should or shouldn't, it's almost like, okay, I mean, this is where I get frustrated with conservatives. It doesn't matter what I say. Women are going to abort their kids. It's not going to become illegal. So if we're in a society where we can legally not be mothers, if we don't want, why can't men legally not be fathers?
No, I get that. Yeah. But the question I'm thinking of is, you're putting a lot on women as those who are responsible for single parent, like single mothers. And what I'm trying to understand is, you're saying, because women can choose not to be a mother, you said something to this effect, and the guy can't, that means the woman has decided to have a child knowing the man will not be there.
At times, yes, at times.
So I guess my concern then is, like, let's say there's a woman who deeply loves a man, and she says, let's get married. He says, yes. And then they do. And then she says, oh, hey, you know, on our honeymoon, I got pregnant. He goes, no way, I'm not doing this. I never wanted to have kids. I'm filing for a divorce immediately. What is the option? Does she get an abortion, or does she become a single mother?
She can pick what she wants.
Right, but my point is that doesn't put the responsibility on her. It puts it on the man.
No, I still think it's on her, because we have 100% control. You can track your cycle. So you have Plan B. You have. So again, if
she married a guy she loved. She thought they were gonna have a family, and then he betrays her.
Okay, I've never met a chick this happened to that had like a real story with facts and evidence. I've never met one.
It's called a hypothetical.
It's not overwhelmingly happening. That's one. And two, you generally, if a man marries a chick, he wants to have a kid with her, generally speaking.
Generally, I do agree. I think,
but again, shouldn't, you know, I think that if women have the right not to be mothers, men should have the right not to be fathers. So if he wants, he should be able to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be a part of this kid's life. I want to opt out of child support for 18 years. You want to have the kid? Good luck. I don't think that's correct, like morally, but right now we can do something. We can get abortions. We can opt out of motherhood. They should be able to opt out of fatherhood.
I mean, they can opt out of fatherhood by not getting people pregnant.
Right. But
so that is very, very possible without abandoning the child. And that's the thing. Like, the child does not have the ability to opt out of needing basic care, comforts, and things like that.
And that's true. But my point is, having unprotected sex, that's an equally irresponsible decision. We can agree, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, but my point is, after that happens, the woman has the plan B option. She's the only one that can guarantee she took the plan B, right? Then she had the option before also to be on birth control.
This is basically their argument, like, because women, are the ones, the ones who get pregnant, therefore it's not fair. That's not fair. Even though these are the same people that always argue, like, life isn't fair, it's biology, we aren't the same, we aren't equal, men and women aren't equal, blah, blah, blah. I just think it's crazy that they try to, like, give men an out for something, like, that affects children, like children's lives that they seem to care so deeply about, instead of just being like, hey, guys, once you, sleep with a woman and you come inside of her and, don't have protection or anything, and you don't trust her, you don't want kids, because you don't get pregnant, you can't get an abortion as a man, she can. So once that happens, that's all up to her. That's just, like, biological. There's nothing you can do about it except for be extra fucking careful. Like, and her consequences are she has to either get an abortion, which women aren't excited for. Women aren't like, yay, abortion, hell yeah, like, get me pregnant so I can get an abortion. That sounds so fun. They're expensive. Most of the times they're, like, kind of traumatic, can be very traumatic. Most people, don't want to get an abortion. Many women support abortion rights, but don't want to get one still. Like, people don't want to get abortions. Or you have to go through a whole pregnancy, your body changes for the rest of your life, your entire life changes for the rest of your life, even with adoption. That's the woman's consequences of getting accidentally pregnant. The man's consequences are he either has to, well, first of all, once she's pregnant, it's all up in her hand. It's all in her hands, all the decisions. That's the consequences. So he's either going to have to, if he wants the girl to keep the child, he might have to deal with her aborting it. Or if she goes through with the pregnancy and he doesn't want kids, he's going to have to deal with being a father or paying child support. Those are the fucking consequences, and there's nothing we can do about women being the ones who get pregnant and having the right to get an abortion. So, therefore, if you don't want children, as a man, like, just be fucking careful. Like, why do I have to explain this? Women get pregnant. Women can get abortions, so men can't. So, be fucking careful, because you don't have that choice to tell her to get an abortion or not. That's called responsibility and decision making. And it's on both sexes, obviously. And they both have different consequences and results.
Or not be on birth control. Many women lie about that. And she has the option to get an abortion. Now we're going close up to birth. As long as we have those extra options, I think men should have the option to not be fathers. Do you think that's unreasonable?
Yeah, I do. And I've listened to you talk about child support and child custody. And I agree with you that if a man is being kept from his child, it is simultaneously unfair to say you have to pay for him, but you're not allowed to visit him. I don't think that's right. Okay. I think you're getting the worst of both worlds there. And I do agree that custody should be 50-50 off the bat. Like, that should be the presumption. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't lose rights to your child just because you and the mother are divorced. But I don't think you can essentially opt out of a life that you created. And when it comes to abortion, I don't think, similar with women, that you should be able to opt out of the life that you created. So
right,
what we
but
have
it doesn't
now,
matter what you think, it matters what's happening.
Right,
that's
so
the point.
Right now what's happening is immorality when it comes to abortion, but I don't think the way to fix that is to also extend immorality to child support. Like, this is a life you've created, you've both created, you both have responsibility to it.
Whose morals?
What do you mean?
Because it just turns into a morality police. And that's like always with these conversations.
About abortion?
Correct. Well, no, I'm talking about sex outside of marriage, that sort of thing. But let's not play pretend. 3% of people are waiting till they're married. That's not really common. I mean, was anyone here virgin on their wedding night? Anyone? No? Okay. So why do we play pretend? All right. So it's like.
Well, I think this gets to the heart of it. We can sit here all day and talk about what we think ought be or not ought be, but the problem is that you're not going to fix any of this without patriarchy. When we threw patriarchy out the window, we sexually liberated women. What we did was throw off a balance of power that was already there. Women historically have been, the gatekeepers of sex. Every one of us.
That's kind of funny because abortion rates have been steadily declining and have reached all-time lows. There was like one spike maybe about like 5 to 10 years ago, or it might have been during COVID. It might have respiked, but there was like one little up spike. It didn't go, past the highest rates from like, I think like in the 80s or like 70s, or I don't know, but it was like a while ago, and abortion rates have been regularly and steadily on the decline. And they're at historical lows. And there's something else too. Like I'm pretty sure like divorce rates are also going down. Now that could be congruent. Oh, sorry if that was loud. That could be congruent with the fact that, people aren't getting married as often either. But I think it's funny we talk about, oh, divorce is such a problem. Our generation has such a problem with divorce. Who's getting the divorces? It's our parents. It's a generation before us that were getting divorces that made the divorce rate 50%. So why is that on millennials? And stupid.
Us sitting at this table has twice as many female ancestors as we do male ancestors. So genetically, women have this great advantage. Then we have our youth, our fertile years, where we have tremendous sway, tremendous influence and power. And I think that's temporary on purpose. What happens when you give women equal political power and equal social power to men, and you remove the father as the head of the household, which all patriarchy means is rule by the father. When you throw that out, this is the mess you end up with that's impossible.
Interesting random side note fact. So I think the original, I'm pretty sure, like I know this is a fact. I don't know if this was like the original term, but I'm pretty sure patriarchy and matriarchy originally referred to in like ancient civilization times, very, very early primal human civilizations. A patriarchy would be a type of not a culture, a type of like a group of people, a little, not like a tribe per se, but some community, like a community of people. And if it was a patriarchy running type of community, it would be the men who stayed within the community, and women, females from other communities, would marry the men and move into the men's community. So the men would stay in the community, and women from other communities who would marry those men would move to those communities that the men came from, were raised in. A matriarchy society or community was the opposite. So the women would stay within their communities that they grew up in, that they were raised in, and the men would go to other communities and find a mate. And when he found her, he would then become a part of her community, and he would leave his and go with her. So the matriarchy was when women always stayed in their own communities, and they're marrying they just didn't have marriage, but their mates would then join their communities. And then the patriarchy was when men would stay and the women would stay in their, or move into their community. And I believe there are types of primates that do this as well. I think most of like the main ones, like chimpanzees and orangutans and stuff, I think they're mostly, actually orangutans might be matriarchy, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure chimpanzees are patriarchies. It doesn't mean that the women are ruling, it just means that they stay in the community and their mates move in with them. The men leave their community to move in with their female partner.
impossible to fix because
And
what are we going to do about all of this
well,
out of wedlock births? And
my point is we have all this freedom, so take the responsibility that comes with it. So if right now we have the freedom to get an abortion, doesn't matter what we want, doesn't matter what should be. I don't agree with abortion either, but right now it's legal. So if that's what we're doing, then take the responsibility of raising the kid. That's what I say.
So, do you all agree with the idea of patriarchy?
Yes.
But I mean, how would you do you?
Oh, I'll put a caveat. Biblical patriarchy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like what is, but how are you? What's your view on the idea of patriarchy?
I don't think it'll ever happen in my lifetime. I think it's a good idea, but I wouldn't predict that would happen in my lifetime.
Sure. How would each of you would you define patriarchy similarly? I think Lauren, you
Right, because I guess just blanketly patriarchy. I think that the father's role at the head of the household, it comes from God, and it's valid insofar as he is acting on behalf of God, trying to lead his family in a godly way. Because obviously people are gonna say like, what about this abusive husband? Blah blah blah. It's like, all right, well, if he is not conducting himself in a manner that aligns with the way Christ treats his bride, the church, then that's actually not biblical patriarchy.
I'm going to shockingly disagree with this take.
Go for it.
Which might surprise a lot of people because everybody knows I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm pretty serious about that. But you guys might not know there was a huge amount of membership in anti-suffrage groups. The anti-suffragists were far more popular than suffragists. Women did not want suffrage. Very few people know that, like less than 4%, according to all of the referendums that they did at the time, women did not want it. And if you take a look at the arguments that women made for
I want to look into this. I've been meaning to look into this. I don't know if this is true. I hear this a lot. To be honest, I don't even really give a fuck if it's true or not, but I'd be curious to look into this a bit more if it's actually real.
or why they didn't want suffrage, why they didn't want women's liberation. They said, you're charging us with something we cannot do. So we cannot rule society. We cannot defend persons and property, which is supposed to be the primary role of government, to defend persons and property. If women can't do that, why give us political power? Why give us voting rights? Then we might have to get drafted. We might have to show up for jury duty, things like that. So I think to say, well, we'll let the men rule as long as they're doing it in a way that we feel is Christian or things like that is kind of beside the point, because women only have an illusion of authority right now. Basically, like if it comes down to it. So men have the monopoly on force. There's no way around that. Even if you talk about, oh, well, there's women senators or there's women presidents or there's females in the military now. At the end of the day, the people who enforce any illusion of rights, women's rights or otherwise, are going to be men. Period, end of story. Nothing you can do about that. So to say, oh, women have equal rights, they have equal rights that they have to appeal to men to enforce on their behalf. So is that actually equal? So I'm just saying, like, to have this idea that, well, we'll let the men be in charge. The men are in charge. Right now, what's been happening is they've allowed women's liberation, and we can talk about who and why.
So you're saying that at any point, if like the majority of men in government were like, yeah, women, you're done. That's it.
Yes.
We wouldn't really be able to do much about it. I don't disagree, but
if tomorrow they went, we've had enough of this little experiment, hasn't gone so well. I think this women's rights stuff is over, and no more voting for you, and
I switched my meeting. This is such a pointless and childish, like, conversational point, whatever. I hear this all the time. It's like, men are big and strong, so we give you rights, and if we want to take it away tomorrow, we will. Like, the fuck? You want to just revert, like, thousands of, not thousands, hundreds, I don't know, a fucking super long time in society for no reason, just because I'm man, I'm big. Like, there's something that separates us from animals. I do like to give animals credit. I think they're a lot smarter than most people give them credit for. But we have empathy is a big one, a very highly organized societal structure. We have free will, or like just like conscious free will, and emotional intelligence, high emotional intelligence and stuff like that. But the way these people talk, they literally want to go back to like fucking caveman days. And I would argue that, technological advances and higher intellect and, using your brain and your intellect to debate, to progress in society is probably better than fist fighting in the street or like, sword fighting. Just my opinion, might be a hot take. Don't know. It's just stupid. Because also, like, how many men have women in their lives, sisters, wives, daughters, mothers that they don't want to take their rights away from. So sure, like they would like have to fight for us, I guess, but we just don't fucking live like that anymore, and it's just a stupid mute point. It's so dumb to even talk about, to even take this into consideration.
You're gonna
Also, like, if men gave us our rights, like, how the fuck did we get them in the first place? Like, yeah, sure, men granted us them, but, like, how did we get them to want to? It's because we're fucking humans.
mostly be at home. If you have young children and you're a mother, you're going to be at home raising them. You're not going to be, you know, trying to be a CEO. That, what would women do about that? Get mad, cry a little bit, yell. I mean, but
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I feel like politically,
Funny. Stupid
women
sad
certainly have a lot of
girls.
power. There are a lot of guys online who refer to our current Western society as gynocentrism. But I think I see what you're saying in that because men typically are the aggressive force, if they decided to, they could stop it, and women couldn't.
right.
So I guess I'm imagining a scenario where if a bunch of, say, like Republicans came out and said, no more 19th Amendment, you would have a bunch of women saying, how dare you, we won't allow this. But I suppose the argument then is the only reason that move from a Republican would be blocked is that Democrat men would block them.
Well, that's how we got the 19th Amendment. It was actually like Gilded Age industrialist progressives, the same guys who met at the Jekyll Island Club in 1910 to draft the Federal Reserve Act, the same guys who wanted the income tax, had a vested interest in getting women out of the home and into the workforce and making them politically active.
But why is that? What was their interest?
Well, a couple of reasons. The first interest is if you're going to do an income tax, you can only tax the men's wages. Well, imagine if you can double that by getting all the women into the workforce and taxing their wages. So that's one. Two is a lot of these guys wanted this blend of socialism and capitalism that we have right now, this kind of hybrid system. And there was a lot of anti-suffrage groups that had posters, pamphlets, encyclicals. They even did debates against suffragists where they said, a vote for women is a vote for socialism, because the Bolsheviks in Russia were saying, we're never going to have full communism, we're never going to have true socialism unless we get women involved, give them the vote, make them workers, make them see themselves as labor units rather than mothers. So this was kind of the plan. So that's kind of how we ended up with the system we have now. So they wanted to dual income tax. They wanted women in the workforce. What's the other big benefit of that? Where do the kids go all day? If mom and dad are both at work, they have to go somewhere. Oh, we magically get the compulsory education system right along this same time frame. So the kids are being indoctrinated with whatever values the government and the Department of Education want to bestow on them. So, and the other big obvious one is cheap wages. If you were J.P. Morgan or a Cornelius Vanderbilt or a Rockefeller or a Ford and you have these huge factories and you need lots of cheap labor, you can only import so many immigrants. Better idea, take the women who are going to work for a lower wage, put them in the factories, which is exactly what we saw happen. So
I suppose with industrialization, you immediately let me pause. Go back before industrialization. Conscription became okay. I got to slow down. Obviously, conscription's been around forever. Guys were forced to fight, but it became substantially more viable to have a conscripted class when like breech loaders, muskets, and more easily loadable weapons became prominent.
Yeah.
It used to be back in the ancient days, you had a warrior class. Men who were born from the day they were born, every day trained to be fighters. And they said, these guys are going to be the fighters who defend this nation. And they had spears, but then all of a sudden they were like, this is a gun. You point it, you pull the trigger, it works. All of a sudden they were like, we could take literally anybody, hand them this, and they can fight on equal. So all of a sudden, I was reading about the fall of samurai in Japan. And this warrior class had tremendous political power that was lost the moment rifles were introduced to the country. All of a sudden, they're just like, we don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Your political power is gone. So I forgot exactly where I was going with that, but
Isn't that a good thing? That there's not a bunch of like burly buff men walking around with guns and like fucking killing weapons, just in control of our rights and like law regulations. I'd say that's like kind of a good thing. It's funny because none of these people, if they were actually living in this society, would want this. This would be horrible. And they only talk this way because they know it's not going to happen. And like, it just, you know, it sounds cool. Or like young guys are like, yeah, it sounds cool. And it gives them an audience or some shit. Like, none of these people actually think this is a good idea. It's kind of just like a huge waste of fucking time, to be honest. I think there's something else I was going to say. It's cool. Maybe I'll remember.
probably that it's the Industrial Revolution is what allowed feminism. If you ever wondered how come women's liberation didn't happen for 2, 4, 6,000 years before this, it's because technology is the thing that makes it possible for women to feel they're equal with men. Look at this studio. Were any of these?
I remember what I was gonna say. These people sound like they hate America too. It's so contradicting because they're like, oh yeah, everything is for America. We love our country, blah, 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 America. But literally all of their prescriptions and beliefs are anti-American. They don't want separation of church and state. That was like literally one of the main foundations of our country, was people leaving the queen, getting out of their rule of, dictating mandating certain religious beliefs. Just a lot of their foundational beliefs and prescriptions that they give to people are so anti-American. Even what they're talking about now, like, oh yeah, men are ruling, instead of having like a democracy, a place where we vote, where all people, equally, big, strong, man, woman, any race, any religion can vote, because we're like working together as a society, and like we're not like the biggest, strongest group of people isn't dictating our laws and rules. That's just like, it's super anti-American.
These lights, this Wi-Fi, these computers, any of this?
Oh, and I hate when people say this too. We were like, oh, this Wi-Fi, blah, blah, blah. The first, what's it called? Shit, now I look stupid. Frequency hopping. Was invented by a female woman, and it was invented to guide torpedoes in World War II. She invented frequency hopping, which was which later led to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So, boom.
Design.
Oh, also, sorry, one more thing. Grace Hopper, I believe her name is. She invented. Oh man, I don't know, like computer stuff really, but it was like basically like computer language outside of just like numbers. Like it read some kind of like computer programming thing, and she invented a lot of stuff for like some of the first computers and stuff. So she was really fundamental and important in that world. There was like there's also like a lot of patents that are owned by men that came from female students that their male teachers took credit for, because I don't even know if women could take credit for, or they weren't going to be like, no, I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff like that too.
By women?
No,
do the women
nothing.
upkeep it? Do the women build it? No, the men build this technological world that makes us think,
and it's so
I
funny.
can be a career woman, I can be in charge.
It's so funny because women will come on the show and say they don't need men on a microphone that men built in a building that men maintain.
And I agree with that. And my counter, because I was talking about this, I have a segment we'll get to in a second. All of these women these feminists are online saying, we're great inventors. Actually, I was just screwing with ChatGPT because it's super woke, and I'm trying to get to admit reality. And it was like, men and women are completely equal and have contributed equally to society. And I'm like, I agree that's true, but tell me why. Mm-hmm. And it starts going on about great inventors. And I'm like, no, spare me this. It is strange to me that there are so many feminists that want to talk about the masculine things women have done, instead of literally just being like, how about every great world leader was made by a woman? Mm-hmm. How about the fact that women are the ones who create the people? In concert with men, yes, but women, if a guy's like, I invented the light bulb, it's like, congratulations, you were created by a woman. Like,
we're never gonna get through this. I fucking hate when people use this as some kind of fucking compliment. Like, good job. You can give birth. That's we should give you credit for that. That's not a fucking compliment. Most women, unless unfortunately you have some kind of like fertility issue and you can't have children or something. Most women, our bodies, we're born with the ability to give birth. That's not like something we earned, or we should be like, oh yay, good job me, I was born a woman. That's what they're saying. That's not a fucking compliment. It's an insult. When we talk about male accomplishments, it's things that they've done for themselves and have earned. themselves because they did it. They had to do. They weren't born a engineer. They weren't born a sculptor or whatever. Like they learned the skills and fought and studied and whatever, put in the work to get to where they are. So it's not a fucking compliment to be like, well, you can give birth. Sorry, you can have birth and make babies, so good job, you. Yeah, fuck that. The fuck? How is... it's so condescending. It's like saying, never mind, just fuck it.
Can we give women credit for being the creators of life?
No, and what's interesting is that feminists basically have masculine values. They only judge women as successful or useful when they are conforming to masculine norms. Yes. That's why they love the CEO, feminine girl boss. They love those female fighters. They're only proud of women when they're behaving like men because that's where their value set comes from. They basically disregard the homemaker, anything feminine, nurturing, caring, childcare. They think.
I will say a lot of feminists kind of disregard more like natural feminine traits and look down on them, and they'll kind of hold traditional masculine traits up, to a higher regard, and put them on like a pedestal pretty much. So they're kind of like almost insulting females' femininity by like looking at traditional or more natural female traits and characteristics as lower than, or weaker, or just looking down on them, and looking up to masculine traits and traditional masculine traits and stuff. But really the whole main point of feminism was to just give women a choice. So true feminists don't look down on being a stay-at-home mom or making your life purpose being a mother or wanting to cook and take care of your house and not work, whatever. Being submissive to your husband, whatever. Like, the point of feminism is to give women the choice to do what they want with their life and then respect that just the same as men. So it's a real feminist wouldn't look down on women who choose not to have a career, and they wouldn't look down on women who choose not to have children. That's the whole point. Yeah.
Think of that as unimportant, which is ironically actually sexist.
So I want to pull this up. I was talking about this the other day. This is a great thread. We have Catherine Brodsky. She posted this image of this Taekwondo black belt woman doing this absolutely amazing bow staff routine. She's spinning this aluminum staff. It looks absolutely incredible. Wow, real talent there. I sincerely mean that. Look at that. Yeah. She said, if you run into her in the forest, I pity the man and the bear.
God, this woman is so delusional.
She then responded, the number of unfit, unskilled men claiming they can, quote, take her merely based on the fact that they are men. Yes, men are on average stronger, but take an unfit man in a somewhat similar weight class and she's winning.
No.
So the first thing I want to say is the caveat of an unfit man in the same weight class after saying, I pity the man and the bear. So this woman, tremendous talent. I mean, no disrespect, but she's 5'1", 100 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
She has her stats are available for her like fight record and everything. There's a reason why a man who is 6'3", raw muscle, ripped the bone with 4 black belts will not beat a grizzly bear in a fight.
Yeah.
Technique's not going to save you from a grizzly bear.
Right.
Because physical mass matters in the conflict. Yes, there's a with proper grappling technique, it's known that women could force a man into a submission, but a 5 foot tall, 100-pound woman will be lifted up with one arm by your probably your average guy. Okay, maybe not your average guy.
I don't even think she could take a 5'1" guy.
No, because even like pound for pound, men are still stronger.
Right.
More bone density, more muscle mass.
I mean,
With one arm, lifted up, an average guy can lift up a female with one arm. Does he mean like fucking like curling her? He could probably like go like this and like pick her up. I don't know if he can literally like I don't know. But yeah, obviously yes, men are stronger than women, 100%. Women can't fight off. Most women cannot fight off most men, like to a very, very, very high degree. But I will say, learning specifically for women, grappling techniques will be useful, at least in helping potentially escape. Things like actual like fighting techniques, like certain kicks, Like learning how to like, you know, probably pack a good punch would be pretty good. I wanted to take Muay Thai lessons a few years ago, but it was like super expensive. I didn't have the money to do it. I would still like to do that at one point, some kind of MMA. But for women specifically, yeah, just learning techniques, specifically with grappling, because that's usually what happens, right? You get like grappled to the ground and learn. You can use, so with grappling, you use your opponent's own weight against them. So that's why it's specifically good for women, and it's usually the position where they end up, struggling in. So that would be good to learn. I think Tim just mentioned that. He thinks it's good for women and young girls to learn self-defense. So, but yeah, no, women can't fight off men.
My husband, he's really into mixed martial arts. He does BJJ, he does boxing, and I asked him like, we have a daughter. He's like, would you put Riley in like Taekwondo or stuff like that? And he was like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, like self-defense. And he's like, no, we're just gonna get her a gun. Like, exactly. She's tiny, she's half Asian. Like, even he recognizes like for her, it's not gonna be useful. Unless you do like the Krav Maga, like you just target the eye and the balls. It's basically the most
whatever's
useful
effective
thing a woman can do.
I mean, I think women should learn self-defense, but I think the idea that women taking self-defense courses under the idea that they're going to beat a man in a refereed fist fight. Yeah. But, looking at this Twitter thread, it's loaded with guys who are like, absolutely a trained woman would beat a man. And I'm like, no. I think Ronda Rousey could probably take the average guy. But even that is a...
I mean, if she had that stick, and she knows how to like fight with it, I wouldn't put it past her. That's kind of a funny pause. Funny pause screen. But, yeah, I don't know. That stick can probably, deter most people. Maybe. Probably, yeah, if you hit him, like, in the right spots and stuff. She seems pretty skilled, so without the stick, no. With the stick, I'd say she has a pretty fair chance.
Maybe.
Right.
There was some unfit average guy. I can't remember the exact story, but he challenged any MMA champion woman to a fight, and they all refused to do it. Until finally they did. Someone finally they would be like, "I'll take him. He's nothing. I'm trained." And then at the last minute, they'd be like, "I'm not doing it." And then finally something happened where he did like a friendly sparring match and got put in a submission, and they hugged it out or whatever. I don't think it was a real fight. The average guy is 5'8", 5'9". Actually, the scary thing is the average guy right now is 5'8", 200 pounds, which is kind of worrisome.
Chunky.
Yeah, and the same thing with average women in this country is also like 150 or something or whatever. But if you take like the average guy who is 5'8", and let's say 5'8", 199 pounds, how is the average woman who is what, like 5'4" or 5'3"?
Well, I think there's like Hollywood movies have contributed to this greatly because they've actually convinced women that, with just training, I could totally kick someone's butt. And we're lucky enough that in Western society, women are so removed from actual physical conflict, including and especially with men, that we start to believe that's true. Well, like, thank goodness all of these women are so delusional, because that means that they've actually never had to fight a man or been attacked by a man. Because if that were, heaven forbid, ever to happen, they would learn really quick that, you're not as strong as them.
Do you think that's part of why, like, Pearl and I are both kind of tomboys? I'm a firearms instructor myself. I teach women basic pistol and concealed carry. And I'd say more than half of my female students do not have the hand strength to load or operate an automatic pistol. They have to use a revolver, something like that.
Okay, so this is, oh, never mind.
That and I think when you grow up doing boy things with boys, you understand and respect that you're not a man.
Well, and playing sports, because I played basketball for 16 years. So if I go do pickup, I gauge with guys, because I'll play with them sometimes, but I know if he played like 1 year of high school, I'm getting beat, even though I played in college.
I just want to mention the speed loader wasn't invented because women had trouble loading guns or loading magazines. It's because it is substantially easier. It's annoying to try and just repeatedly. Oh man.
Right.
Okay, so this is news.gallyup.com. Oh, let's see. Here's the CDC. Actually, hold on. I'm going to replay it again. Let me go through this and find the actual numbers. And then, oh, okay. Measured average height, weight, and waist circumference for adults ages 20 and older. The average weight in pounds for men is 199.8. And the average weight for women was 170.8. The average height for men was 69 inches. And the average height for women was 63 inches. So yeah, that's like almost exactly even. But yeah, I just want to look that up real quick.
Going to the
You're
range
gonna have
and
a
then
revolver. You gotta have a speed loader, but
right. We go to the range and I'm like, I've got 17 rounds to load in this thing. Just give me the speed loader. I don't want to keep pressing into it. It's extra work I don't want to do. Yeah, I'd imagine the speed loader is going to make it much. Technology really does equal the playing field for women in a lot of ways.
But even a man with a gun versus a woman with a gun, 9 times out of 10, the man's going to be better. Like, and people don't think that that's the case, but like when I took my testing to get certified, there was only one other woman with me. She actually brought her husband and had him like loading her magazines and stuff. I was like, this is cheating. I should have did everything myself.
Well, and men even have better hand-eye coordination when it comes to aim. I absolutely demolish my husband when it comes to stuff like that, but that's like very rare. Usually it's like on average it would if the best sharpshooters or whatever in the military, they are men. And I know like that's one of the things where there was this whole debate about should women be in the military, should they serve in combat roles? I don't think so, but people are like, well, they can still fire guns as well and stuff like that. It's like actually no. Actually, yeah.
Well, and just because some women can do some things doesn't mean that all women ought to do those things.
It's the exception, right?
Yeah.
And then it just proves that women need men. And back to this post, like all the men commenting, it's like, okay, well, who's really to blame for feminism if men, these simps, like allowed women to have this power? And how do we actually combat feminism today? Because like you said, women are controlling the emotions and they're the ones driving this hysteria and making the men vote this way and enforce these things. So really it's up to the men. And I saw your husband talk about how men need to create like men's rights advocacy groups in Washington.
They've had them for over 100+ years. The first men's rights advocacy group was in the early 1900s. The reason that it's so ineffective is because women are the biggest swing voters. And so like that's why I would say women are more responsible for feminism, because most men do not have political power other than one vote. And even if they do vote, women will always outvote men because there's more women than men.
I do think though that part of the reason that I would say that men they need to have higher standards when it comes to women. I do think that if women, like the reason why so many girls are on OnlyFans or are whores are because men still sleep with them. They're paying the OnlyFans subscriptions. And I know it's easy, like this is not what's happening. This is what they ought to do. But if we ever want to change the culture, we have to start somewhere. And I do think that if more men's advocacy groups arised and more men were like, I'm not going to give women and feminists the time of day. If they're pro-voting, if they're feminists, like make it so unfavorable, bring back shaming to such a high degree, as rabid as the feminists were, where they took over everything. Like,
so I disagree with you. I think women want to be on OnlyFans because they enjoy being whores. So I've interviewed so many sex workers. They just like it. They get off on being naked in front of men. I don't think it's this like the men.
She's interviewed so many sex workers. Yeah, of course, fucking. Sorry, let me fix this. Oh god, sorry, I keep forgetting the mic's on there. Okay, of course, most women, currently in sex work, especially like on a podcast, especially like typically, I don't want to stereotype, but typically like maybe the kind of, stereotypical like OnlyFans, kind of like, especially like a internet, like Instagram kind of female attitude. She's gonna be saying like, yeah, I love doing it, like I just do it because I like it, whatever. Most of these women resort to this because some of them do, really they just are, sex is kind of like what they like doing, and stuff, and it's like kind of perfect for them. But I'd say most women probably choose sex work out of necessity. And again, there are some women who it really just like speaks to them, and that's kind of like clicks for them, and that's what they really do enjoy doing. But I'm pretty sure like most sex workers do it for out of necessity. Maybe they're a mother, maybe they're in school and they just don't have time for like a job that pays less. You have to work more hours, etc. Most women aren't just doing it because, I just love shaking my ass in front of like guys naked. Like I don't even care if I get paid. I just love doing it. That's not real.
are giving that. Like, I
But
think
the men are there to be in front of.
Yeah, but they're also there to be in front of when they walk outside. And I see this when I go to Vegas. Women just get naked on the street. Like, you see them, they have like stickers over. Women, I've never seen women fight harder than for anything than the ability to be naked and the ability to be horsed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's absolutely appalling, but I think men should have the discipline. And I know it's tough because I'm not trying to blame it all on men, but at the end of the day, it's like sales. It's like if there's no supply, if there's no supply.
But I'm saying even if there was no OnlyFans market, like women would still figure out. There's been escorts, prostitutes, since that's like the world's oldest profession. That's always going to happen. Well, I think
how can you be a prostitute if there's no market for it? What the fuck? That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If there's no market for sex workers, like, women are still going to figure out how to be prostitutes. Do you even think about what you're saying? Oh, you can't see? Oh, sorry, it's more like...
But back to the whose fault is it? I think it's women. I think we're always bringing the blame back to men, but most women vote just because women had the opportunity to leave their husbands. They didn't have to pick it. And I think we're ultimately responsible for the downfall of society. Most men have very little to no political power other than one vote.
Isn't it then fair to say it's actually men's fault for allowing women to do these things in the first place?
Okay, so wait. I want to actually break that down. So, okay, you go get married. Let's just say tomorrow you find your chick, you get married. And then she says, I want to leave you. And I want to take half your business and your stuff. What do you do? No, don't do it. Well, no, I really want to. No, please don't. Let me go leave.
But my point was pre-women's suffrage.
Wait, yeah, literally, how did that answer his question in the slightest? That wasn't even related to the same subject. So he said, so wouldn't, like, he's addressing Pearl, by your own logic, Pearl, you've been using this whole debate, or this whole discussion, wouldn't you then blame men because it's men's fault for allowing women to do this, since, men can say, no, you're not allowed, whatever. And then she says, well, what if, hypothetically, even though I couldn't answer the hypothetical question that you asked me earlier, I'm going to ask you one now. What if we got into business and then you paid me to leave the business? Would you do that? She's going to obviously relate this to divorce. But what the fuck does that have to do with the market for sex workers? Please, someone explain that to me.
It was men, it's patriarchy, and then the men go, I had an idea, let's divide power amongst women.
Yeah.
Couldn't you then blame men for being weak?
Fine, maybe 100 years ago,
Failure
sure.
of
But I'm
leadership.
saying any person born today or in the last 50, most men didn't have anything to do with that. Like, you weren't alive. I wasn't
Sure, yeah.
alive. So, yeah, sure, a few men you could say are responsible, but by and large, far more women have opted for this stuff. Far more women have gotten abortions. Far more women have gotten on OnlyFans.
Only women have gotten abortions.
Yeah. And because, like you said earlier, when women get power, they're terrible. They don't know what to do because they have higher rates of mental illness. They're just way more abusive. They just are power hungry. So because men allowed them to have the power, and now women have the power, and look how terrible society is with the sexual revolution. And now it is
Those men. How dare I say anything negative about men at all? Like any men, like, oh, I'm so sorry, you're so fragile, I don't want to offend you. I don't know who this girl is. No offense, but she just like looks stupid. like you just every time I pause it too, and she just sounds stupid. What she says is stupid. She looks stupid. Don't know who she is. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. It's kind of funny. I just like, I don't think women should ever leave the house, even though I left the house right now and I'm telling other women not to leave the house. Women are sleeping with their bosses. Kind of sounds like a tell to me, but
because of women today and them having power. And it sucks because we can't go back in time, but what can we do now?
But that's my point. If we're gonna go like back, if we're gonna make the argument whose fault is it, far more women are at fault than men because a very small percentage of men had anything to do with this.
But I kind of feel like the generation.
How could men not have anything to do with the market for sex work? Women were just like, hey, you better pay to have sex with me. Like, what? Women were like, oh my God, I really, I'm gonna make men videotape me and sell it to other men. That's my bad. I really, the fuck? She doesn't believe what she's saying. She's just saying shit.
Generations just have different problems.
Okay.
I mean, if you go back to the stark patriarchy, there's war, the bloodiest war, Civil War, World War II. There's bad things that existed under patriarchy as well. And so if you look at society today and you say, degeneracy and these things that came from sexual revolution, these are bad things. But does it mean that it was there ever a utopian society? I mean, how do we weigh the problems today against the problems of yesterday? There were always problems we're trying to fix.
And
Well,
also,
I think the problems of the past were more due to lack of certain technology we have that improves things. So we often conflate the effects of the industrial and technological revolutions with the social revolutions, which feminism is by far the biggest and most significant social revolution of all time. It was not an organic grassroots movement. It was totally astroturfed. It was completely engineered. It was societal engineering. But I think this is my hot take, is that we're not going to fix this. We're not going to culturally go back. There's no going back. But what is going to happen is this is completely unsustainable. This situation, totally unsustainable.
Such a hot take. We're not going back to primal society. Wow. That's a crazy hot take, Rachel.
Sustainable. And here's why. Birth rates in South Korea right now are 0.78. In the United States, in the entire Western world, in fact, in the whole world except a handful of countries, it's well below replacement.
I disagree. I agree with everything you just.
I don't know. I guess I don't know about South Korea and whatever. But people keep talking about this birth replacement. We came after the fucking baby boomers. They're called baby boomer generation for a fucking reason. If we don't replace them, okay. I don't know why that's such a big problem. People are saying economically and stuff, but it's probably better for our planet, and overall it's going to be fine. People are making this such a big deal. I think 5 years ago we were talking about planet overpopulation and we're all gonna die because we're having too much kids, and now all of a sudden it's oh, we can't replace the baby boomers. Maybe that's gonna be a good thing. I just think people like making issues. They make making non-issues issues.
Said, except for there's no going back. I think what you described is going back. So when you look at the birth rates, yes, in the United States it's below replacement, but look at the conservative birth rate.
Right.
It's not above replacement. It's not, but it's higher.
Yeah.
Which means that there is this dip happening predominantly among liberal groups
Yes.
and feminist groups,
Yes.
and it's much lighter against conservative groups. Which means, over a long enough time scale, conservatives rebound, liberals.
That's exactly what's going to happen. But I don't think it'll be going
Yeah.
back. It'll be a rebirth, and it'll look different.
And I also disagree that that's really going to happen, because you can't make your kid be conservative. And I've seen kids in, maybe this is anecdotal, but I've seen kids with very conservative parents come out very liberal.
right, they didn't send their
anecdotal.
children
I
to
mean,
college.
They've actually done.
They came out of the womb very liberal. They came out of their conservative mother's womb liberal. Just came out full progressive, pink hair, a Nirvana t-shirt on. That's what happened.
Done studies. If the greatest single predictor of what your political ideology is going to be is the ideology of your parents, that's
before the age of 25. After 25, the number one is your husband's. Your spouse.
There is a genetic component to political beliefs.
Yeah.
People are uncovering more and more. But if you homeschool your kids, you definitely don't.
I guarantee you, your political beliefs have more to do with how you choose your spouse than who your spouse is dictates your political beliefs. It's just so retarded. And there are studies on this. Actually, so your parents has to do with a good reason for why people have the political beliefs they do, and brain structure. But they don't know if the political beliefs cause the brain structure, the brain structuring or whatever, or if the brain structuring comes first and it leads that person to have those political beliefs. Or it could be a little bit of both, because maybe the way you were raised then causes you to think a certain way, which causes you to use certain parts of your brain more than others, which then causes you to have more of these political beliefs.
send them to public school, there is a good chance that yes, your child will be conservative, and if they get married, then that's
Pearl, you are correct, and I think you're going to agree with me. You said that you don't think it's going to go back because you can't guarantee your kid is conservative, but after 25, the husband is the biggest predictor.
Husband's number one. Second is where you live. Third is parents.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me bring up this image right here. This is just a couple of the data points that we've seen from various countries. Men skewing conservative, women skewing liberal.
Yeah.
So Pearl, what happens at 35?
Okay, but women aren't going to get married.
Right.
Wait. I want to, and women still have the most political power.
So,
go ahead.
Right. Do you believe that all women hold these views? I would argue that many of them are just following social trends.
Yeah.
I think that. Do I think all women are liberal? No. I think some are. Yeah.
I mean, of liberal women, do you think all of them inherently do believe this? I believe that when you look at the data from Instagram and TikTok, where women are like young girls develop Tourette's from watching videos of Tourette's and very social
Everyone's
influence.
autistic now.
So I think here's my prediction.
Yeah.
When you look at men skewing conservative, and it's happening now, Gen Z, predominantly among men, very much moving towards Trump. It's this weird phenomenon we've not seen. Gen Z is considered to be the most conservative generation in 100 years, not because they're conservative, they're not, but because it's the first time we've tracked slight conservative ticks. So typically, of the past 4 or 5 generations, the next generation is always slightly more progressive. Gen Z is the first time we've seen it sort of balance out and then move a little bit to the right in one area. So they're very similar to millennials, but whoa, it wasn't a dramatic shift. Here's my prediction. Men don't have a biological clock.
Right.
Men are skewing conservative. Men are going to be 35.
Men do have a biological clock. It's not a full on like women's biological clock, but after 35 there is higher risk for birth defects, infertility, and having unhealthy children, and having problems with I think you have like a lower sperm count and stuff. And the older you get as a man, the higher these chances are. So like people keep saying like, oh, men, you can have children whenever. Wait to have kids when you're 60. But it is also risky. Like, yeah, women like have 0 chance after a certain age. Sorry. And it starts to get very risky around like in your mid 30s. My mom had me at 36. That's probably why I'm like retarded. But just kidding. But I also think it was funny. They were just saying like, oh yeah, these people are watching people on the internet and now they're learning how to be autistic. We can we can get autism from watching and looking at autistic people now. Did you know that? Autism's contagious? That's never heard that one before. I didn't know that. But anyways, yeah, there is a risk for men who want to have children later in life. That's it's not a like hard stop biological clock, but that is a fact. And the older you are, the more risky it is to have birth defects, infertility, just like disabilities, things like that.
And they're going to meet a 35-year-old woman on a dating app, and the woman's going to be sitting there going, I'm a progressive. And he's going to say, ma'am, I have all the time in the world. Have a nice day. I won't have kids with someone who's going to divorce me.
Yes.
This is going to do...
I love how it's just like, oh, I'm liberal. Okay, well, I have all the time in the world. I don't want to date somebody who's going to divorce me. Wow, you vote Democrat, you're going to divorce me. Peace out, Tim.
2 things. The women who are only following social cues will immediately be like, I never actually cared about that. I want a family. Right. And the women who do really believe it won't have kids.
Yeah, so
I know.
here's what I was trying to say earlier is this is a self-correcting problem, meaning we're not going to have to go in and like rebuild the patriarchy. This is the patriarchy going, wait a minute, this was really bad. This was a bad deal. The sexual revolution was a really bad deal for men. Men are figuring this out now, and exactly what you said is true. Men can wait. They don't have to start.
More men than any time in history are having children today than ever. People are acting like the modern times are so like doomsday, so doomy. Crime rates are significantly down since the 60s and have been steadily going down. There's like a few peaks here and there, The only crime violent crime that has gone up is rape, but I don't think that's true. That's just because people are actually reporting it. Yeah, literally every single violent crime, and I think like non-violent crimes too. Maybe not like money stuff. I don't know about that. I just know violent crimes have been steadily going down, and it totally makes sense. We have cameras everywhere. We have super advanced DNA technology, fingerprint stuff. Like the forensic stuff is crazy good, and we've only had that like the past 2 decades, 2.5 maybe at most. I think most of the stuff came out maybe like in the 90s, maybe even 2000s. Yeah, I think like in the 2000s. So we have camera. Everybody has a camera on them at all times. We have security cameras with really high quality. And then the forensics technology. People lock their doors and stuff. People didn't even lock their doors. We have cell phones. You can call for help anywhere you are. Crime is super down. Abortions are down. Divorces are going down. I think that's arguable. But I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It's not that bad, people.
Start a family before 30. And by the way, women aren't having children until they're 30, 31 years old now, which is why the birth rate is so low. It's not because people are having no kids. It's because we're telling all the women to spend their fertile years in college, going into debt and building a career. And then we think they're going to flip a switch at 30 and just start popping out babies. They have 1, maybe 2, because it doesn't make sense to have all that debt and invest your whole 20s in your career and then suddenly stay home with your kids.
This is what I...
But the men aren't going to...
It's not just the career, though. It's not. It's so funny because these people will say like, "Oh, women pick stupid careers," or they'll go to school and then not even go for their career, or they get some bullshit degree, or they get some like a teaching job or like HR or something, whatever. But then they all say there's so many of these girl bosses and shit. The career thing, like, sure, that contributes, but that's not the only reason why women are having children later. It's because it's a smart thing to do. I was even listening to some of Pearl's like call-in shows earlier because she says throughout this appearance on Tim's show that like she's interviewing all of these men. She's going out and interviewing all of these men. I'm like, where are these interviews? I know she's been making this like documentary about the family court system in the UK. She said it was supposed to come out like last fall. Here we are like a half year later. Still not out. But she keeps saying that she's interviewing all these men. She's referring to her viewer call-ins. I realize that's what she's referring to. And then she'll say things like she said earlier, like, I've never talked to a woman in this situation. Like, they come on my show and they tell these stories about these abusive boyfriends and husbands, and they don't give any facts. There's no police reports. Well, these fucking viewer call-ins don't have that either. But she takes that as like a hard... cold truth or something, like a hard fact and evidence, and of course just like writes off, dismisses the women as like, oh well, you're a woman so you're lying, whatever, you're just trying to get clout, whatever. Where was I going with this? What was I saying?
The men aren't have all shit at 30 and just start popping out babies.
Oh, okay, yeah. So a couple of the people I listened to who called in, one was a man, and she asked him, like, do you have any advice? And he was like, don't rush into marriage. Like, I rushed into my marriage. I got married really young because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I think he was like a pastor or something. That was his advice. There was a woman she talked to, and she was like, yeah, I met my husband when I was 17, and we had 3 kids. We were together for 15 years, married for 13, and he ended up... I think it was like the day she gave birth to her 3rd and youngest child, he came clean to her saying that he has substance abuse issues, and now he's like basically homeless, and he's spending all of his money on I guess drugs and stuff and whatever, and he was like abusive, and it was affecting her children and stuff. And she said she met him when she was 17 and she didn't know any better. She was fucking 17. And, Pearl is, like, telling fucking, like, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, like, oh, this is when you should be looking for a husband. No, people get married later because it's a smarter thing to do. And if anything, getting married so young, like, you know, the past couple generations, is probably one of the highest contributing factors to the very high divorce rates. So that's what I'm saying. Just their advice makes no sense, super counterproductive, super contradictory. They have no evidence or facts or like data to back up what they say. Other things they say totally contradicts and opposes things they say earlier and later. It just, it's all bullshit. I don't know why it pisses me off this much, but I guess it's just like so many people really like fall for this stuff, and I think it causes like a lot of hate and tension, and that's what it pulls on your like hate heartstrings, and it like feeds people the validation of their like anger and fears, but it's all based on like lies. The red pill is the biggest blue pill because they're the ones who actually think they think they're the truth, right? That's the real matrix. You live in this simulation where you think, you know, this is reality, but actually it's not. It's all a simulation. It's all a lie. So that's kind of what the red pillars are. They're living in this like simulation that they believe is the truth, but it's actually not. So red pill is actually the biggest blue pill, and that's why they think it's the red pill, because it's not reality. They're living in a simulation lie. Get it?
They have one, maybe two, because it doesn't make sense to have all that debt and invest your whole 20s in your career and then suddenly stay home with your kids.
This is what I.
But the men aren't gonna keep going.
Yeah, this is what I would predict in terms of outcomes. Young women have no evidence that they care what men want. When you poll them, they say that they care about men, like they care about traveling more. They care about other things more than men. If I had to predict what the future will be, I would say single parenthood, and I would say that IVF is gonna, and women are just gonna have kids older and older. It's actually gonna get to the point where they don't need a man. They can just get a sperm donor.
That's true, but I don't believe it will outweigh. No. I don't think the numbers can ever reach that point. Especially single parenthood will not be nearly as successful, as you pointed out, with crime and homelessness. These men that are becoming more conservative are going to make demands, and everything you pointed out about divorce, it's a really great point. A guy says, a no-fault divorce, you could just take everything away, and what's the point of getting married?
Yeah.
So that means you're going to get more and more guys who are shifting conservative, going on dates when they're 30, and they're going to say, you were really sweet, I really enjoy your time, but I will not date a woman who believes in no-fault divorce and abortion. And this means that those women will have to go towards IVF, or they won't have kids. If they don't have kids, then their line ceases.
But they will adapt to the views of their husband. But it doesn't. Right. We looked at the results of the 2020 election. Married women voted Republican on average, and this is something that is not that uncommon. White women also voted Republican. Right. Guess what? Majority, of all the social demographic groups, white women most likely to be married. Married women are conservative because men are conservative, and I believe, we've talked about service, guaranteed citizenship. What is the ideal electoral system? I think vote per household led by the husband would be one good thing, but I think my husband firmly believes that if a man is strong and leads, women will follow. And I think that is also true in relationship. He has friends who are very, very right wing in Quebec, very liberal area. They do not have they are young, they're in shape, they have good jobs. They do not have problem, even the super libby area, finding women to date, because it's true. When you present yourself as the strong masculine man, you have these opinions, women follow.
But it doesn't matter what women say, it matters what they do. And if I had to predict in the next 5 years, again, the system is still the same. Women can still recommend in family court. So why would it be any different the next generation? I mean, you can say what you want in the dating phase, and there's many women that do. I interview the husbands on the other side. They say one thing and they do another 5 to 7 years in family court.
I'm just saying,
divorce rates are actually going down.
So the only reason it's going down is because COVID set the numbers off. That's one. And the average time before marriage is going up.
And nobody's getting married anymore.
And no one's getting married.
No one getting married wouldn't affect the divorce rates.
Law, morals, none of it matters in the mathematical argument. If it is true that even if there's still going to be high rates of divorce, the fact that men are becoming more conservative, this is going to apply a pressure that over a long period of time there will be attrition away from divorce and abortion and all of these things. They'll still exist for a while, but over a long enough period of time, if the math is trending this direction, even if it's 0.1%, this is why casinos make money. Yeah. Most of these games are 49, if the casino has a 50.5% chance to win to your 49.5, they don't care if they lose $1,000 because over the long enough period of time, they make money no matter what.
Yeah, I just think that's selling dreams. Okay, guess. 10 years from now, are there going to be more single mothers or less single mothers? Guess. More or less?
More. In 10 years, more.
Okay. In 10 years time, wait, I want to go through
It's not going to happen, like you said, in our lifetime, correct. It's not going to be corrected that quickly. But this I think will accelerate because men are realizing they don't have to play these games and they don't have to participate in the system. And I think one of the biggest problems that we have, and Lauren talked with my husband about this, is the fact that throughout all of human history, marriage used to be a contract between two families. It had sacramental and religious and spiritual significance. It's a contract through the state. It's a license you get at your county. That's 100 years old. This is a very new idea. It failed miserably. There's no we shouldn't be surprised that everyone's getting divorced, because who cares about your silly contract through this? It's like a roommate agreement. It's easier to get out of than a cell phone contract.
It's easier.
Meaningless.
It is easier to get out of a marriage than it is to get out of a lease.
It is.
How
It
insane.
really is.
For women.
Yeah.
Well, right. Yeah.
So I think another thing you're going to see, another trend we're going to see, because men are going back to religion as well at a higher rate than women. Like serious traditional churches are seeing a huge influx. Like the Orthodox Church, I think 80% of our new converts are like young men.
That's great.
Women are going to like Wicca and astrology and all this garbage nonsense. But men are going back to like the traditional churches. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to say, I will marry you through my church. We will have an ecclesiastical marriage where our church and our community kind of govern the terms and enforce the contract rather than just going through the state.
I just wouldn't predict it, because even if you do that, you can't out religion the state. At the end of the day, the state is still the enforcement arm. And if you have children in this country, they're not yours.
The state doesn't matter. All that matters is cultural enforcement. That's why.
No, it does matter.
That's
It
why
does
it's like
matter.
in Boston, for instance, it's illegal to put a pie on your windowsill on Sunday, but everybody does. There are a bunch of blue laws that exist on the books but are never enforced.
Right.
It's because people fear more social than they do legal. For instance, why are criminals still going around raping and murdering and shooting despite the death penalty? They don't care. But why is that cancel culture dramatically shifted major parts of our market for the past 10 years, only up until now? Why did Target abandon, in many of their locations, the Pride section? Cultural enforcement is stronger. When you have people who grow up in a rural community going to church, and that there's a man and a woman, and they think to themselves, if we get divorced, it is going to cause major cultural problems for us at church, at community, in our bake sales, in the fire department. We can't live with that. We have to deal with it. The pressure is on them. If you're in a big city, perhaps yes, but cultural enforcement dictates how people behave.
Yes. Let's keep couples together that are miserable together, don't like each other together, by socially stigmatizing divorce again and, getting rid of no-fault divorce. Just forcing people who don't like each other, who have toxic relationships, unhealthy marriages that their children see every day. Kids pick up on that shit. I've known divorced couples whose kids have literally told them, like, their parents are like, oh, I'm so sorry, me and your mother divorced. And the kid's like, Dad, all I care about is I like seeing you happy now. Like, and it's not like they were fighting in front of the children or anything, but it's like the kid was like, I just like seeing you happy now. Like, I haven't seen you like this in a while. Kids pick up on that stuff. And when kids grow up around, the parents are the examples. So it's better to have happier and healthier separated parents that have a working relationship, but they're not together. There's a word for it, but they communicate, they don't hate each other, they're not toxic, but they separated because, things didn't work out for, there's a variety of possible reasons. Then forcing by law, or even just socially stigmatizing people to stay together who are miserable, unhappy, and don't want to be together. It's better for the children to have a healthy and confluent, oh my god, I can't think of the word, but yeah, a relationship that, they divorced, they separated, but they can, have a healthy relationship when it comes down to their children and working out what they're going to do to see their children, be in their children's lives, and, make it work for what's best for their kids.
If they could pass a law, and as long as there were cops in Seattle. Antifa was threatening a guy. The guy's backing up, and he's like pointing at him as he backs away. Cops jump out of their car, arrest the victim. Why? Because the social order in Seattle and Portland is we do not take action against the far left mobs. So the cops' mentality is if I go after the protesters, I'm gonna get into a fight. People are gonna get mad at me, and then I'll be on the news as attacking peaceful protesters. Just arrest the victim, and it all stops.
But there is no cultural enforcement that shames women for doing that. I can even look at conservatives. I mean, I have a list here of all the conservatives that are divorced. It's not. I mean, look at how we handled the Crowder situation. Look at Lauren Southern. She just got an article written about her poor divorce story. There's no shame, even from conservatives, for divorce.
I think the movement for like abolishing no fault divorce, though, I think it is gaining traction. I'm hearing about it more and more, and it's partly due to people like you, but I think there are more and more conservatives who weren't really thinking about this. It's not like they supported it, but that it just wasn't on their radar. And I think it's starting to become part of the conversation where, hey, maybe we should talk about this in a way that 10 years ago it wasn't even being mentioned. So I'm actually somewhat hopeful that maybe in the future we could do something about that. I think that is a meaningful change that we could make that would, again, I'm not advocating for state marriage, but for those of people who do care about government marriage but are concerned about that, I think that actually is something we could change.
Yeah, I think it sounds. I hate to be, I hate to be a pessimist. I just don't see any evidence that's happening. That's like we could say, we want that to happen, but it's not like a wish list.
I have a question. What is the number one podcast among women?
Probably some murder one.
Probably call her daddy.
Yeah,
That's got to be because they were close. They were close to Joe Rogan.
And what do they talk about on that show?
Sex.
Yeah.
It's
how to give proper blowjobs.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. Because,
and she just got married. That's a crazy thing.
I was thinking about this because it is largely true crime. Women watch. Listen.
Pearl's so salty. These podcast whores just got married, and Pearl's still single. She's so salty.
Into a lot of murder mysteries, but I think was it Call Her Daddy?
Yeah,
and it's like kind of vapid, degenerate sex talk. And what do guys listen to? No question, it's Joe Rogan. And what does Joe Rogan talk about?
Protein, MMA. My husband loves Joe Rogan.
And cultural news and political news.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because I'm willing to bet the majority of people listening to the show right now are dudes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because on YouTube, my audience is probably for my political channel around 80% male, and I was excited when I started my pop culture entertainment channel. I was like, finally, I can have more girl audiences because we're just talking about movies. No, 95% male. So I don't know. I guess I'm not talking about the right movies.
Yeah,
or the right activities.
Yeah. So I had a question with the Crowder case. I told you I was going to bring this up. Why, you said on stream there's some information behind the scenes. But if you're willing to say, this vague stuff, like what is it?
So officially my stance is, aside from what I've already said, Crowder and I currently work for, and he used to work for Blaze TV. We do actually have, some NDAs and non-disparagements, so I will not be commenting further. And I know that's frustrating, but that's why I'm not.
But then why did you make
on Crowder's side.
Yeah, but why did you make like 5 videos on it if you're going to say now I can't comment?
Oh, I can't comment on what is not publicly available.
Okay.
I can talk about what publicly is out there.
Okay. So publicly, Hillary on video said he wasn't abusive. Why was that not reported on?
About him not being abusive?
Yeah, it was on video.
I mean, I have problems with
you
the
had
way
something where you alluded in your video on him that he was abusive after you played the clip of him talking to his wife. So my question is, if you're going to report on that, why did you not report on the video of her saying he wasn't?
He wasn't abusive. Which video you're talking about? It was the one that I recently did with Jared.
It was not the one where you did with Jared. I'm saying there was video of Hillary Crowder saying that Stephen was not abusive, and all of the conservatives were super willing to throw him under the bus the last year, make a ton of money off of it, except for Tim.
Except for Tim,
you were the only one who I thought was fair. I really did. I have never been so disappointed in conservatives because
with Stephen, and I think with Stephen, like if it were just his divorce, wouldn't have talked about it, but he is someone who is in this industry who has a pattern of basically blowing up personal relationships. And I think
but that doesn't make him an abuser, right? You can be an asshole, but that doesn't make you abusive.
I definitely don't think he's like physically abusive or anything like that.
Well, yeah, but you alluded that he was like you said that he was abusing his wife in that clip. So if she has a clip that says, hey, he's not, I would think, oh wow, all the conservatives, you guys would be the first to report, except for Tim. He was the only one who did. And it's like, you were willing to make video.
Well, are you asking like the ring cam footage about him?
No, it was video of his wife in court, and she said he was not abusive. This is on camera. The nanny also testified not abusive.
I think my video specifically was about the nanny footage, which to tell your spouse that you do not love them, I do think that's, emotionally abusive.
I wouldn't say that's emotionally abusive. No. And because he says you do not show me love, and what he was referring to in the video, if you really listen, pay attention, and there was a clip cut out, was that she was not showing him love because she didn't listen to him. And it's like trad wives. Why wasn't the question? Why didn't you walk the dog like you were told?
Yeah.
But
if you're really, there's a lot to do with the whole Stephen.
Why was he telling her to walk the dog? Pretty sure she was like pregnant with twins or triplets or something, and she had some kind of like she was like about to give birth. She had some kind of pregnancy complication. Maybe that's what I heard. I know she was definitely pregnant, but like, so the fuck? Just walk the dogs, bitch. I know you're like pregnant with twins right now, and you're gonna give birth like any day, but the fuck, walk the dogs. Now, this is what I mean. You can tell Pearl's not had like a real relationship because she has no understanding of actual like relationship dynamics, and just like she's very sheltered, doesn't have a lot of experience because she doesn't understand interpersonal human relationship dynamics, even with friends, other women, like it just poor people, any like mothers, anything. She just should not be a voice for anyone except for maybe rich sheltered people.
Crowder situation that I'm just not going to comment on, like publicly.
But you were willing to publicly make video after video after video
about what was publicly available.
And so is the nanny footage. So is like so. Why don't?
Quick question. Isn't it confirmed that I could be wrong about this, that Crowder's wife deleted a bunch of footage from
over 100? That's important, you would think.
Yeah.
That's
conservative.
So actual Justice Warrior did this whole breakdown about it. That's something that Crowder's team is alleging, but I don't know if the court itself has verified or backed it up at this point.
I'll tell you why I knew it was full of shit when I first heard it, because I've interviewed so many men that have gone through the same exact thing, and what women do is they poison the well for years. So they'll go around to all of his friends and drop little tidbits of abuse. Now the common ones are emotional abuse, physical abuse. Some throw in the pedo accusation. That's devastating to men. That's a devastating one. They'll say it about their family. So they'll do this for years. Then when they come out and say he's abusive, they have all of these people ready to back them up in white knight. And then typically what you get is an out of context clip that they throw out there. And so I knew what was happening when I first saw the video.
And you can tell from her Twitter that she's obviously a crazy woman. And I personally think emotional abuse is a myth. I know you said
agree with you
you
on
seem
that.
to have a different perspective. Would you think emotional abuse is a valid reason to have a divorce if you support no fault divorce?
No, but something can be unacceptable behavior though, still within a marriage. Absolutely.
But who are you to tell a man how to speak to his wife in his house? Isn't that out of order?
I mean, you do that all the time. You call other men simps all the time.
But I don't tell them how to talk to their wife. That's your business.
That is absolutely not true.
Okay,
there are
name it. Go ahead.
for sure. There are tons of times where there will be actual men in your comments saying,
So when I
disagree.
No, it's more than that. It's more than just like her calling chatters and commenters simps. She's literally like, men, don't allow your women to do this. Well, yeah, she will call them simps. Actually, I think I know what Lauren's saying here. She'll be like, oh, wow, any man who lets his wife do this, like, blah, 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 stop doing that. But if she's fat, like, fucking divorce her, get her on a treadmill, blah, blah, blah. Like, she does tell these guys, that they're being pussies or simps or whatever for handling a relationship the way that they handle it.
You call them simps.
When I say simps, it typically means out of order. So typically when I say that, I'm referring to a pattern of behavior where they're putting women on a pedestal. That's typically what I'm describing.
But you'll say that about specific men.
But we're going to the what about? You're changing the topic.
No,
who are
this is
you?
the same topic.
No. It's a different because
It's the same topic.
my original question is, who are you to tell a man how to talk to his wife in his home?
Well, I don't.
Do you think you should be able to tell a man how to talk to his wife in his house?
I think that men should conduct themselves with biblical standards when it comes to.
No. But answer my question. Do you think it's your place to tell men how to talk to their wives in their home? Answer yes or no.
I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that a man should hold himself to a Christian standard in the home.
So you do think it's your place, and this is what I mean when I say a lot of conservative women aren't really conservative.
That's true. What it ends up
the same thing Pearl
what
does.
makes sad man mean? Woman sad, man bad.
Because you're first from a biblical point of view, you were supposed to be obedient to your husband in all things. So before conservative women will talk about the disobedience, their first thing is their tone.
Yes, the tone policing.
That's
super
before.
out of control.
But they never. And I could show this because there was video after video after video. Not a single conservative woman said, "Oh, hey, she didn't listen to her husband." Mm-hmm. Not one. That's crazy to me. And then we want to say, like, men, go get married to conservative women. Most of them aren't really conservative.
Let's bring up the Lauren Southern story, because I think this was actually a big component of Lauren's story. This article was written, I think it was Unheard. It was written by a woman who got divorced. And in the story, I think one of the issues was Lauren realizing that just being this obedient, good wife to this man wasn't working. He kept threatening to divorce her, and it seemed like nothing was working. That was her. I believe
that's her side of the story.
For sure.
And so I doubt it. You were just, okay, let me get this straight. Okay. So nobody asked a question. You were this perfect angel. You were a perfect angel. All you did was listen to your husband, and then he threatened to divorce you all the time. Do you guys hear these stories? You believe this? Come on.
This is exactly what I mean. The oversimplification, the ignorance, the inexperience, she just has no knowledge on this subject at all. How can you fucking simplify, you know, somebody saying, and sure, yeah, we have one side of the story, okay, but the reason she says that's her side of the story, and so I don't believe it, I doubt it, but yet she takes her viewer call-ins as fucking, you know, if they're men, as fucking truth and evidential fact and shit. It's just really funny because it's like you dumbed down somebody saying, oh, my husband was abusive, so we got a divorce, even though I'm Christian, and like divorce was like the worst thing, so I really didn't want to, I pushed it off, I ended up getting a divorce. 2, I don't believe that because 1, you're a woman, and you didn't name anything that you did, therefore you're insinuating that you're a perfect angel who never did anything wrong. And so, yeah, I just don't believe you. Like, this is just not how real life fucking works at all. We're 5 minutes away from the 1 hour mark of this video. I'm going to stop it there. So if I feel like covering the rest of it, I'll remember that's exactly 1 hour. So yeah, I think they talk about Lauren Southern a little bit more.
But that's why I mentioned biblical patriarchy. Lauren talks about how even before they were married, he would do things like leave for days on end, like not talk to her. There were red flags.
Why did he leave? And that's what we never talk about. A lot of times when men leave, it is because there is a negative behavior that we don't talk about.
A lot of times. A lot of times. Good to know. Very helpful.
Why? For example, what if she cheated? I'm not saying she did. I don't know. What if she cheated? Would that be an acceptable reason for him to leave for 3 days?
I know, but
we don't know.
Point
we don't know
is, even if that is a red
she gets
flag,
an article.
you have a responsibility as a woman to choose someone, to choose a strong leader for yourself. So if you're going into this 4 months and you're already seeing red flags, it's not trad to say, I will marry him anyway. Like, I've not seen Christian dating accounts say, ignore all the red flags.
Are they a Christian couple though?
I think he is.
Is she Christian?
Like,
what are we?
Yeah. So, but my point is that I like Lauren, but she was kind of portraying as this is why my trad relationship didn't work out. I don't think it was a trad relationship.
Yeah,
like, look at that.
No, that's my point. Even trad women do not behave trad.
But what is
that is?
What is
So when I say traditional, traditional is family first.
Oh my god, guys, that is so not trad. Like, she is so not trad. Yeah, wow, like, so trad. So it sounds like it's just like a bunch of high school, like, gossip girls. Like, wow, she married him. Like, that is not very trad at all. He is not a trad guy. So uncool.
Above all, the family comes first before me.
But I think maybe there's a bias in the system because the women that we hear about are prominent political commentators. They're working women.
Yes.
The traditional mothers don't go on. This is a really good point in terms of the rise of feminism as a whole. All these news articles and these columnists, these women writing about what women should or shouldn't do, are not traditional mothers. They're working women in offices, so they have this natural bias.
These women. That's why I put on the thumbnail of this video bunch of women telling other women to do what they don't do, because that's exactly what this fucking is. This is exactly what all of these women who talk about this shit are, that complain. It's kind of like how they were saying, like, oh, these women say they don't need a man, and they speak on the same microphones and in the buildings that were built by men. It's the same thing about these women, like, talking shit on feminism and saying, like, oh, fuck feminism's horrible, even though the only reason that they're allowed to say this to an audience of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people is because of feminism. And that's, like, a more direct connection, too.
Life is good and everything I'm doing is correct. And then the women who are like, my family matters more than anything else, and I'm not concerned about what's going on outside this house. What matters inside this house is my thing. She's not writing these articles. We're not hearing her perspective.
Well, I mean, I don't call myself traditional or conservative because I'm like, who's tradition, what tradition? That's very vague, very nebulous. And conservative, we haven't conserved anything. There's nothing that's been conserved. So I spent 20 years raising a family before I started doing this, and I kind of got into it by accident. I wrote this little book thinking maybe my dad would read it and maybe my grandkids would read it, and it just kind of blew up.
Now you're killing it.
So now here I am. But I have 5 children. I've homeschooled them. Like, I spent 20 years in my house, in my kitchen, chained to the stove. No, I'm just kidding. Doing all of that before I started making commentary on this sort of thing. And yes, I'm sorry, but if you have a whole career outside of your marriage, that complicates things. Women don't want to talk about that, about how difficult it is when you are over here trying to hustle for your career and, you have goals that are not related to your family and antithetical to your family, how that is going to interrupt your family life and your marriage.
I want to trigger as many feminists as possible, so I'm gonna get into this.
Let's go.
Get into this.
Okay, before Tim derails us here, I'm gonna end it here. I'm gonna end it on this message. Actually, I think it's perfect. So I just think it's funny. Like, it's actually not funny. It's actually like really fucked up and kind of sad. But like these women, like, why are they doing this? Why are they talking, sharing their, such worthy opinions and stuff? Even though they're women, like, why aren't their husbands here telling them? Why aren't, did they get all these ideas from their husband? Rachel would probably say so, because she just repeats the same things that her husband says. But Pearl seems to have some strong political beliefs. She doesn't have a husband, even though apparently the strongest dictator of your husband or your politics is your husband. But I think actually one of the biggest problems women have, or especially women in the past, and it could even, I would need to look into this more, but I think it would probably contribute to a lot of these mental health issues that we say are so common amongst females. And that's basically like having a life outside of your family, your husband and children. I think especially a lot of women in the past would, literally be stuck in the home from morning to night. They were focusing on their kids and their husbands. They did nothing for themselves. Maybe they had a knitting hobby. They were, testing out new seasonings and spices and stuff. But we are social creatures. We need socialization, and it's not enough to just talk to your kids every day and listening to kids meet. Like, that will drive anybody crazy. Women, I don't think it's a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a very healthy and good thing for women to take time to be selfish, to have, something for themselves, do something for them that isn't doing anything for anyone else besides fulfilling them, making them feel happy, making them feel creative or fulfilled, feeling like they're contributing. It could be volunteering, it could be gardening, it could be a hobby, some kind of art, some kind of anything, sing it, whatever. It could be literally anything that speaks to you. Going for hiking, like whatever. Something that's totally just, she's only doing it for herself, and in turn it will be better for the family and her children, because it's kind of like, how on an airplane they say to get your own like mask on and then help the person next to you. You have to help yourself before you help the person next to you. That's the same thing. If you are, having your own health and happiness, that will, that's contagious. Your family and your husband and, people in your life will get some of that. Like, they're gonna get things out of that. So it's really not selfish. But I think a lot of these like mental health issues go from women just feeling kind of like, because we are humans, we need social lives, we need purposes, and a lot of things I hear from women when I say like women need a bigger purpose outside their family. Oh, children are the biggest purpose, blah, blah. We can't live vicariously through our children. That's, I think, one of the most abusive things that mothers in particular do to their children, is living vicariously through them. Maybe because they weren't able to live the life that they wanted to. Maybe because they grew up, in an age before feminism, so they couldn't do the certain things. They didn't have the same opportunities as their daughters do. And so they like push them to do certain things, or, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's really important for women to have their own self that's separated from their family, and their children and their house and everything. I think that would help a lot of people, families, women, families, husbands, children, everyone. So I just think it's funny, all these women on this podcast speaking their opinions to like thousands of people in an audience and just telling other women not to do so. It's like, fuck you. I don't know, it's just so dumb. But yeah, I'm gonna head out. So, yeah, peace out, Girl Scout.